Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Finding Magic podcast, where we talk about structured intuition, creativity, and magic, as discussed in my book, Getting into the Flow, and we learn from our guests' stories. It helps us broaden our view of reality and understand how magic is created and sensed, so that we can end up realizing our true potential, create our lives as purposeful and powerful, and from an inspired, joyful, and magical place. I'm Vincent, your host. Let's get into it. Amanda and I had a long conversation, and in that conversation, she shared not one, not two, not three, but four stories. So I'm going to split those across two episodes. Story 2 and story 3 go together very nicely. So in this episode, we're going to hear the first story and the last story. Welcome to episode I.3, and today I'll be interviewing Amanda Moor-Kellogg and inviting her to share a story of magic showing up in her life. Now, Amanda Moor-Kellogg is a transformational facilitator, coach, and speaker. Bringing her dreams to life, Amanda ignites all levels of vision, intention, and desire into an experience of fulfillment and attainment and possibility for personal and professional pursuits. Amanda offers an illuminating heart and soul approach using a mix of traditional coaching and practical intuition, and she pulls from her wide range of experiences in both the corporate and entrepreneurial worlds. Having experience with business and leadership development, consulting, professional sports, event planning, real estate, health, and life coaching industries. In her downtime, Amanda is passionate about sailing, deepening her intuition, skills, energy, healing arts, alchemy, driving race cars, equestrian sports, hiking, and enjoying the outdoors with her dog Lucy as much as possible. And I don't know where she gets the time for all that. So today she's going to share a story or two about how the universe conspired in her favor through the years in business and life, finding the path to her true nature and purpose as a coach, speaker, and facilitator, and how finding this intuitive work feels meant to be and has a ring of truth about it. So, with all that said, I'm going to invite Amanda. Yeah, would you like to tell us about your story that you're going to share with us, starting with the background to it?
Absolutely. I think it was last year I was in a coaching program for coaches, and we were asked to remember the magic and synchronicities through our life. Like that was part of the practice we were doing. So I just started writing, and it was just like pages after pages that I was writing and going back through my life and really seeing the interwoven piece of how like the universe just kept conspiring in my favor, despite my own ego and all my own, like fears and how I kept trying to hold myself back. I could totally see how the universe just kept conspiring in my favor and leading me on this path that really kind of felt in lots of ways meant to be, like to how I ended up where I am today. So I figured I would pick out a few of my favorite stories to share that just really ring true to my heart, and I think that the audience might appreciate, because there are just so many stories, obviously, on pages and pages of writing here. But I think for me, I really think back to one of the big ones when I was in college, and I was a senior in college. When I was back in high school and middle school, there was this BMW car that I really wanted. It was just like my dream car. And as in my intro there, you notice I love race cars and I love driving. So it was like the car, I had it in my mind. It was this beautiful red sports car. And obviously in college, I couldn't afford it. In high school, it wasn't there at that time. But my senior year in college, that car came up from auction. My stepfather, picked it up. He worked for a dealership. He called me and said, "Hey, that car you wanted came available. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a senior in college. I don't have the income or the money to get this car, right? And somehow back in that day, the bank gave me a loan based on the fact that I was like an A student in college, and they knew that I was going to go out into the business world and make, all this money in the future. So they literally gave me this loan based on that. So here I had my favorite car. And then through the years, I drove the car on the racetrack. I did all this stuff. And there were moments on the racetrack where I needed my intuition to avoid car crashes. I mean, there was times when I like lost my brakes on the track, barreling into these fast turns, and all of a sudden I had no brakes, right? So there was just looking back at these stories where I used my intuition in those moments, based in here, I'm in this car that I'd always dreamed of, and magically somehow all the pieces just fell into place to me to get that car originally. So, and I have stories of that nature through riding horses professionally. So just all these really cool little stories based on all that.
So can I stop you there and say you're
Yeah.
barreling into a turn and you've got no brakes, and then you've not told us how you got out of that?
Right, exactly. So here I am barreling into this turn. The cars in front of me are going slower than I am. And I just, instead of panicking and going into this freeze mode, I just went into like this time stand still. And I just went into this like kind of innocence, place of innocence that we learn about in like natural success. And I remember to this day, and this was years ago, and my intuition just kind of guided me to guide the car to the inside of the turn instead of, because if I'd gone straight into the out where there was like a big grass field, I would have clipped the car in front of me. He was going so much slower. And I just started going down through the gears on the inside and scrubbing off as much space as I possibly can. And then it was just magically, my intuition said, okay, start unwinding the wheel here. And as I did, out of the center of the turn, I somehow just coasted between all the rest of the cars off the track sideways. But I missed all the rest of the cars and just squeezed through this tiny little space
Mhm.
off the track. And then I just kept going and going and going to the car literally, had no more, like it just kind of came to a standstill. And then I got back on the track again and had to go all the way around to the pits to get out with no brakes.
Oh, great.
But it was just that magical, like I just got into this time standstill and just somehow I knew exactly how to do it, where to go. And I'd never practiced that maneuver before at that point.
And when you got into the state of time standstill, was that intuitive, or was that a specific, were you following a specific process, or did it just come
It,
in?
yeah, it was totally just intuitive because at those speeds, you can't, our conscious brain cannot react
Hmm.
in those speeds. And a lot of times on the track, a lot of people go into that fear-based mode and they panic and they freeze in those moments, and or they do the wrong thing, they like jerk the wheel or they stand on the brake too hard or whatever it is. But in that moment I just went into this place of I just did things I didn't know how to do that were way above my skill set at that point.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Fantastic. Great. Um, so you said you have one or two stories. Do you
I
have another
do.
one that you would like to share?
I do. So that was kind of, that's just one of those big ones that was early on, that I can kind of look back to go, okay, my intuition was really, kicking in there, and the universe was really conspiring in my favor. I think I was telling you this story recently. I had really wanted to go sailing, and like I said, I'm very passionate, love being on the water, but I hadn't had much opportunity this year to go sailing. And so I put it out there in my choices, and I was like literally I was keeping the end vision of wanting to go sailing this year. And I ended up at an event and I met someone who had a sailboat at that event who had never met before through a mutual friend. He invited me out to go sailing on his boat for the day. I get out there, and I should backtrack for a second. In the back of my mind, one of the things I've wanted to do is like leadership retreats and healing retreats, um, on sailboats. And I wanted to be able to do that like on a charter boat, but I don't know anyone who does charters. So I'm sitting on this boat with this gentleman that I met, a couple of friends. He introduces me to another woman who's on the boat. She starts talking about this woman who does sailboat charters. And come to find out, it's somebody I had found on Instagram and had been following, and she's a personal close friend of hers. I'm like, this world is too small all of a sudden,
Yeah.
right? So here we have this, again, this connection of the universe going, yeah, you are aligning with your true nature and purpose. And it just keeps putting the right people at the right time. And I just keep stepping into it right along the way. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share, or we'll wrap it up there?
I think we could wrap it up there. I think
Yeah.
I gave you a good 20 minutes worth of.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you'd like to learn more about Amanda and her work, or me and my work, and finding magic, because there's only so much we can cover in an episode, then please head on over to my website, vincentgmelling.com. You'll see a podcast button at the top, and that will take you to links to access the full list of podcast episodes. And for Amanda's interview, and for all the interviews, that will include a link to all the resources that she's shared with me if you'd like to work with her, as well as, and also that button will take you to a full list of podcast episodes, which platforms you can get them on, and a link for you to join discussions of the episodes. And if you'd love to share your story of magic on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. And there's a link for that too. On the website, there's another button for you to get my upcoming book, Getting into the Flow. And if you're listening to this before February 2024, when it's going to be published, there's a special early bird offer. And finally, there's a button for you to engage with me through coaching and the trainings I run, where you'll be able to find out how to use structured intuition to create a vision for your life, create the life as you've seen it in that vision, and reach your true potential and find the magic and flow in your life. Here's the website again, vincentgmelling.com. Thanks to you all. Thanks to the local birds, the golf course, and the builders next door for the sound effects. And I'll catch you all in the next episode. And recording, stop recording.